I delivered pizzas for about a year and a half when I was 19. It was for a local place called Sal's, not a chain, just a small shop off Route 9 in a suburb outside of Cincinnati. The pay was garbage, but the tips were decent, and I got to drive around by myself all night listening to music, so I didn't complain. Most nights were completely uneventful. You pull up, you knock, someone answers in their pajamas, you hand them a box, you leave. Easy, mindless, safe. Until the night I drove out to Sycamore Lane. It was a Friday, maybe 10:40 at night. We were close to closing and I had one last run. Single order, one large pepperoni, one 2-liter of Sprite. The address was 4117 Sycamore Lane, which I didn't recognize, and when I punched it into Google Maps, it took me to this neighborhood on the far edge of our delivery zone, like right at the border, the kind of area where the streetlights start spacing out and the houses get further apart. I remember thinking it was weird that someone way out there was ordering from us instead of just going to Domino's, but whatever. I grabbed the order and drove out. The neighborhood was quiet in a way that felt less like peaceful and more like empty. A lot of the houses had their lights off, even though it wasn't that late. No cars in driveways. I drove down Sycamore Lane, counting mailboxes until I got to 4117. The house was set back pretty far from the road. One story, older looking, with a covered porch that was completely dark. There was a single light on inside. Looked like it was coming from a back room, but the front of the house was totally dark. No porch light, no light above the door, nothing. I sat in my car for a second. The phone number on the order was there, so I called it instead of walking up. It rang 4 times and went to a voicemail that was just silence. No name, no greeting, just a beep. I figured I'd just do the normal thing. Walk up, knock, wait 30 seconds, leave if nobody answered. I grabbed the bag and the soda and walked up the driveway. The porch steps creaked like you'd expect from an old house. I knocked on the door, waited, nothing. Knocked again, a little louder, still nothing. I was already mentally writing off the tip and turning to leave when I heard it. Scratching. Not like an animal, it was slower than that, more deliberate. It was coming from directly behind the door, low down, near the bottom, like something was dragging its fingers across the inside of the door just below the handle. I took a step back. Then it stopped. I stood there on that dark porch for probably 10 seconds that felt like 5 minutes, just staring at the door. And then, I don't know why I did this, I'm an idiot, but I leaned in slightly and looked through the little decorative window at the top of the door. There was a woman standing in the hallway. She was maybe 10 feet back from the door, just standing completely still in the dark, not moving. I couldn't make out her face that well. She was just this dark shape in the hallway, totally motionless, arms at her sides. And she was looking at the door. Looking at me. I said, "Hello? I have your pizza?" Like a complete moron. She didn't move, didn't answer, didn't do anything, just stood there. Every single hair on my body stood up. I want to say I stayed calm, but I didn't. My brain just went, no, like a switch flipped. I set the pizza bag and the soda down on the porch, and I walked back to my car faster than I've ever walked in my life. Got in, locked the doors, started the engine. I sat there with my hands on the wheel trying to figure out what I was supposed to do. I looked back at the house and the single light in the back room was off now. The house was completely dark. I called 911. I felt stupid doing it because I didn't actually know if anything was wrong, but I told them what I saw and gave them the address, and they said they'd send a unit to check it out. I drove back to the shop and told my manager what happened. He looked at me like I was crazy, but I could tell he was a little freaked out too. About an hour later, I got a call from a police officer. She told me that when they arrived at the house, the front door was unlocked and open. Inside, they found an elderly woman who had fallen in her hallway and had been on the floor for what they estimated was several hours. She was conscious but disoriented and couldn't get up. She'd been trying to call for help and at some point had apparently ordered the pizza because she thought maybe the delivery driver would come to the door. She was okay. They got her an ambulance and she ended up being fine. But here's the part I can't stop thinking about. The officer said when they found her, she was on the floor. She had been on the floor the entire time. She physically could not stand up. So I don't know who was standing in that hallway when I looked through that window, and I've never been able to come up with an answer that doesn't make my skin crawl. I don't use Uber that much anymore. And when I do, I sit in the back seat with my hand on the door handle the whole ride. Most people who know me think that's weird, but if they knew what happened to me on a Tuesday night in March 2 years ago, they wouldn't think it was weird at all. I was living in Indianapolis at the time, just finished my second year of college. My friend Kara had a birthday thing at this bar, about 4 miles from my apartment. Nothing crazy, maybe 15 people, some drinks, some food. I left around midnight, maybe 12:15. I was tired more than anything, just ready to get home, change into sweatpants, and pass out. I opened the app, requested a ride, and stood outside on the sidewalk waiting. The car that pulled up was a dark gray Honda Accord. The plate matched, the name in the app said Dale, and his rating was 4.92. I got in, said hey, he said hey back, and we pulled out into the street. Normal, completely normal. Dale looked like he was in his mid-50s, kind of heavy-set, baseball cap, one of those little air fresheners hanging from the mirror. He had talk radio playing low on the stereo. I remember staring at my phone the whole first few minutes, texting Kara that I got a ride okay. I wasn't even paying attention to where we were going. Then, I was. I looked up from my phone and didn't recognize the street we were on. That wasn't immediately alarming because I'd only lived in Indy for about 2 years and didn't know every road, but something felt slightly off about the direction. I opened Google Maps and checked. We were going the wrong way. Not slightly wrong, completely wrong. My apartment was north. We were heading south on a road that was getting noticeably less lit up the further we went. I looked at the app and the little car icon on the map was moving away from my destination, not toward it. I told myself he probably knew a faster route. I told myself the app sometimes does that thing where it reroutes weird. I told myself a lot of things in about 30 seconds. Then I noticed he hadn't said a word the entire ride. Most drivers at least do small talk. How's your night? You headed home? Whatever. Dale hadn't said anything since that first hey. He was just driving, both hands on the wheel, eyes forward, completely silent. And the road we were on now had no street lights, just dark on both sides. I could see trees. I cleared my throat and said, "Hey, I think the route might be off. My place is actually back north." He didn't answer. I said it again, a little louder. He reached forward and turned the talk radio up. My whole body went cold. I looked at the door. The little lock button was down. I don't know when that happened. I didn't lock it. I reached over slowly and pulled it up, trying not to make it obvious. He glanced at me in the rearview mirror the moment I did it, just for a second. Then he looked back at the road. I have never been more scared in my life than I was in that exact moment. I pulled up the Uber app and hit the emergency button, which calls 911 through the app. I had my earpods in, so I pulled one out and held the phone to my ear. When the dispatcher picked up, I talked loudly so he could hear me. I said I was in a dark gray Honda Accord. I gave them Dale's name from the app. I said I didn't know the street, but I was heading south and I needed help. I said it all clearly and fast. Dale slowed the car down. Not stopped, slowed, and he turned the radio off. The silence was somehow worse than anything else. I had my hand on the door handle, and I was genuinely calculating whether I could tuck and roll out of a moving car. Then he pulled over to the side of the road and stopped. He turned around in his seat and looked at me directly for the first time. His face was completely flat, no expression, and he said in the most calm, even voice I've ever heard, "You can get out now." I got out. I didn't grab my jacket, I didn't say anything back, I just got out and stood on the dark side of the road and watched him pull away. I stayed on with the dispatcher until a police cruiser showed up about 4 minutes later. They took my statement and drove me home. The investigation into the driver didn't really go anywhere that I know of. Uber suspended the account while they looked into it. I never heard a follow-up, no charges that I know of. I don't know what Dale was planning that night. Maybe nothing. Maybe I panicked over a guy who genuinely just took a wrong turn and turned the radio up because he didn't hear me. But I've replayed that moment in the rearview mirror 100 times. The second I unlocked that door, he looked at me. He was watching for it. He knew exactly what I was doing. People take Ubers home alone every single night without thinking about it. I used to be one of those people. Getting into a stranger's car is just something we do now. We trust a star rating and a profile picture, and we get in and we look at our phones. I think about how many other girls were in that back seat before me, and I think about which one of them didn't think to unlock the door. So this happened to me about 2 years ago, when I was working security at this mid-size office building in Columbus, Ohio. Nothing fancy. 6 floors, a parking garage, a lobby with those big glass doors that reflect everything at night. I'd been doing the job for maybe 4 months at that point. Honestly, it was one of the easiest gigs I'd ever had. You walk the floors, you check the doors, you sit at the desk and watch Netflix on your phone until 6 a.m. That's it. That's the whole job. The building was empty by 7 p.m. every night. By the time my shift started at 10, the place was completely dead. Just me, the hum of the fluorescent lights, and whatever show I had going on my phone. I actually used to look forward to it. No boss breathing down my neck, no customers, no drama, just quiet. That night started the same way every other night did. I clocked in, did my first walkthrough at 10:15, checked all 6 floors, scanned my badge at each checkpoint, came back down, made a coffee, and sat at the front desk. Everything was fine. Everything was locked. I remember feeling almost bored, which, looking back, I'd give anything to feel right now. Around midnight, I heard the elevator. Not like it was moving. I mean, I heard the ding, that sound it makes when it arrives at a floor. I looked up at the display above the elevator doors in the lobby, and it showed the elevator was on the 3rd floor. I figured maybe the button got stuck or something. Old building. It happened sometimes. I made a note of it and went back to my show. 20 minutes later, it dinged again. 3rd floor again. I grabbed my flashlight and took the stairs up, walked the whole 3rd floor. Supply closets, conference rooms, the open office area with all the cubicles. Every door was locked. Every light was off. Nobody there. I even checked the elevator itself. Empty. Doors opened and closed fine when I hit the button. I wrote it off as a mechanical thing and went back downstairs. But then, maybe around 1:30 a.m., I started noticing something that I can't really explain. The chairs. In the lobby, we had these 4 waiting chairs lined up against the wall near the front entrance. They were always in a straight line. I'd walked past them maybe 100 times and never thought twice about it. But when I looked up from my phone that night, one of them was pulled out, just slightly, maybe 6 inches from the wall, facing a different direction. I sat there for a second just staring at it. I'm the only one here, I told myself. I probably bumped it during my walkthrough. I got up, pushed it back against the wall, and sat back down. Tried to forget about it. I couldn't. Something felt different in the building that night. I don't know how else to put it. It's like when you're home alone and you just feel like you're not. That pressure behind your ears. That thing where you keep looking up for no reason. I did another walkthrough at 2 a.m. Floors 1 through 6. Every checkpoint, every room I had a key to. Nothing. I came back downstairs and the chair was pulled out again. Same chair, same angle, same direction. My heart dropped into my stomach. I hadn't imagined it the first time. I stood in the middle of that lobby and I just listened. The building was completely silent except for the AC kicking on and off. I pulled out my phone and called my supervisor. No answer. Called the emergency line. Left a message. I didn't know what else to do, so I just stood there at the desk and watched the lobby. That's when I saw the door to the stairwell close. Not swing shut, not blow shut, close, like someone on the other side had been holding it open and quietly let it go. The little vertical window in the door had been dark a second before. Now there was a shadow behind it. I don't remember making the decision to run. I just did. I grabbed my stuff, hit the panic alarm on the desk, pushed through the front glass doors, and stood outside on the sidewalk in 38-degree weather, without my jacket, just staring back into the lit-up lobby. The police came about 7 minutes later. They swept the whole building, all 6 floors, parking garage, roof access, everything. They found a man on the 4th floor, tucked into a supply closet behind a shelf of printer paper, crouching in the dark. He'd apparently been in the building for hours. They said he had zip ties in his jacket pocket and a knife in his boot. They never fully explained how he got in or how long he'd been watching me do my rounds. The detective said it looked like he'd been moving through the building while I was checking other floors, using the stairs while I used the elevator, staying just 1 step ahead of me. I quit the job the next week. I don't think I could have gone back even if I wanted to. Some nights, I still think about that stairwell door, about how long he must have been standing there, about what would have happened if I hadn't looked up at the right moment. The thing that gets me most, though, that chair.